Okay, again, a whole bunch of things that we must be doing. Derek will like this, but we're probably aiming to a repository of expanded metadata that's stored as triplets, RDF or RDFA for those that are technically minded. And all that says is this thing is related to that thing in this way, qualifying the relationships between things. Okay, now this is important because what it also says is that we're going to have all these metadata collections that we're going to put into aggregated repositories that we've expanded. And then, look at this. There's also all kinds of other things that can go into this expanded metadata record. We can take publications and citations. We can go and scrape websites for extra relational information, and I'll explain that shortly. We can ask networks and institutions to contribute to that metadata base. We can get voluntary or crowdsourced contributions. If you add something to LinkedIn, it gets mirrored into this repository, something along those lines. And then also, increasingly, billions of smart devices in the Internet of Things, can start contributing little relationships into this metadata base, at least conceptually. This one is important. What's happening there is that Google and Microsoft and Yahoo, amongst others, are starting with an initiative that they call schema.org. And what schema.org does is to say, if you're going to create a website and for argument's sake you're putting a product on there with a price, we're telling you how to tag it so that that information is reusable in a different context. So if the people are standardizing their web pages according to the prescripts or the guidance that's contained in schema.org, it makes it much easier to mine that page for specific data items and the relationships between them. So think about it. If I'm creating a new website for DST or the CSR, and I use schema.org as a basis for how I construct this, then that information is much more readily transformable into something that can go into this expanded metadata base. So the fact then that ID works for the CSR only has to be stated on their website, and it can go directly into this metadata base. Okay, the third problem that we have is that yes, we can talk about all of these things. One of the things that I'm very worried about, for argument's sake, is that we're talking about these community websites inside our communities of practice here in SAEON, in the Risk Atlas, all over. But who's going to maintain it? Who's going to maintain the lists of people that might be interested in collaboration? Who's going to maintain the list of publications that might be of interest, and so on? So part of the reason this must be done is to support tools for scalable knowledge networks, community of practice networks, so that the effort needed to maintain sites like these is radically diminished, and it becomes almost an automatic thing that must just be moderated by humans instead of being constructed by humans. Okay, so we might have something that in the future we have things like participating institutions, initiatives, people, funders, stakeholders, all of those things in a typical network portal, but a lot of these things can be automated in terms of what we're presenting. If we just say that this community deals with water and health and blah, 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 we can go and construct a large part of this community portal automatically. And we can construct a large part of the rest automatically with some human mediation or moderation. So that's the goal. Okay, so added onto this process of sourcing metadata from all over, we then have tools for query and retrieval, for visualization and presentation, and then eventually mediators or judgment tools to assist people with their moderation. Okay, and then finally, what we're saying is, even if we think we need to define this reference model so that we can assist with the implementation of a liberalized metadata schema on a very large scale, we don't think we need much by way of extra standards and specifications to achieve this because it already exists. It's almost a question of looking at the typical reference model that looks at all requirements and motivations and goals and all the patterns and architectures and whatever, and just fitting what already exists into this framework with our goal in mind, because as far as we can determine, it doesn't need any new specifications. They exist already. We must just go and present them correctly. So we're moving into a situation where we're saying when we're talking about scientific endeavor and what communities do when they collaborate in science, we typically have these entities: people, institutions, projects, networks, funders, initiatives, and RDI outputs, research outputs, and they all have relationships between each other, and we want to start elaborating that. So starting maybe with metadata, it's mostly nowadays hierarchical, where there's sort of this tree-like structure between all the things that it knows about a data set or some information object. And we want to move that around so that it reflects all of these other implied relationships as well. And from that, we can start building our community support tools.